Well, welcome to my coverage of the first round of the quarter-finals. So the field of 16 players has now halved, and the top 8 players from the preliminaries have gone through to this knockout stage. Very exciting stage. And I'm going to be showing you the results and picking my game of the day. Now, who's playing who? Well, we're concentrating on Wesley So versus Jordan van Foreest. But there's some other great matches going on, as you can see there. Artemiev versus Hikaru, very hard to call. And Alireza versus Liam Kwong Lee. Mamedyarov versus Aronian. But let's move in, using the amazing gchess.com, to my game of the day. And this is a brilliant miniature from Jordan van Foreest of the Netherlands against Wesley So. And Jordan has been really doing very well in the chess world. He recently won the Wimbledon of Chess, the Wake Zanzi competition over in Holland. And here he has the white pieces against Wesley. I met Jordan. For the first time I met him was over in the Batavia tournament in Amsterdam. It was played in a cafe right by Central Station in Amsterdam. I can't remember how many years ago it was. I played him in this all-play-all tournament. And it was a very interesting game. I ended up losing, but an extremely nice chap who, at least I got my revenge in some blitz games, I think. But he's just a very down-to-earth, nice guy. Very easy to be down-to-earth in Amsterdam in a cafe. Lots of nice beer flowing. But it was a lot of fun. And we're going to now move over to the game, and Jordan starts with e4, and after e5, this is the first game of their 4-game quarterfinal. We get bishop b5, and I recommend bishop c4 in my course Grandmaster Gambits, which you can see in GChess. All the information is up there, but bishop b5 is obviously the start of the Rouleau pairs. Now Wesley So plays knight to f6, the Berlin, and this is indicating that he wants a nice, solid, risk-free game where with black he can hope to draw and then win with white. And here I think Jordan plays, he's very crafty in the opening. Jordan, he really is one of those players who likes inventing stuff, not just following main lines but coming up with his own ideas. And he plays what I consider probably one of the most exciting lines against the Berlin. Maybe a bit of an oxymoron there. Exciting, Berlin, is that possible? Well, keeping the pieces on with a simple move, d3. Now the main line continues with castling, and you get this ending where we have d4, and the knight comes back, an exchange on c6, exchange on e5, and the queens come off. And it was shown in the World Championships between Kasparov with the white side against Kramnik in 2000, that black is actually probably just absolutely okay here. And this ending you can play, but it's quite theoretical now, and Wesley's very experienced in it. So I think Jordan's choice to keep the queens on the board with d3 is a very good choice. And as always, we'll have a look at what GChess has on this opening at the end of the video. Now, bishop c5 was played, and this is the most common move. The other thing black can play is pawn to d6 immediately. But there's a clear downside to this move, and that is the bishop on f8 is locked in. And white must be a little bit better here just by comparing pieces. And if you do that, you can see the pawn structure's symmetrical, so who's got the better pieces? And white's got his bishop outside of the pawn structure, meaning it's out of jail, and black's bishop is in jail. It's behind those pawns there. It's trapped behind the pawns, and it can't get out into the fresh air as easily. So after something like castles, bishop d7, a good plan for white here would be to prepare d4, but you want to be able to take back on d4 with a pawn, keep your pawns in the center, and you can do that with something like rook e1 and c3. And I think with d4 coming, white certainly has some small advantage here. So bishop c5 is what most players play, and now Jordan plays an interesting move. He plays a move that Magnus Carlsen has played against Wesley So, and that was the move bishop g5. And maybe this is actually now the modern wrinkle, the modern way to test this. There is another possibility, and the other possibility is damaging black's pawns by capturing on c6, and this is actually one of the lines we recommend in our encyclopedia, the encyclopedia on GChess. And after castle's kingside, you get this structure where, as you can see, our deep, well, I'll show you later, but our deep neural network computer thinks white has a very small edge, but it's not much. But at least you've unbalanced the pawn structure here. But bishop g5 is very interesting because you're immediately putting that knight in a pin, and you're basically saying to black, well, your bishop has come to a square where you don't really want to move it back to block the pin on the knight. And this could be a modern, like I say, way of playing against the Berlin, just to keep some pressure up and keep the pieces on the board. Now here Wesley So played knight e7, and this has been suggested actually by a number of grandmasters, and this is one of those moves which I think sums up modern day chess. To me, this move looks disgusting for black. I would never consider playing it, but it's one of the computer's top choices, and the computers like this move. But it's very hard to play, and I think this is one of those ones where you can't blindly follow the computer's analysis, which so many people do now. You've got to think for yourself. And again, I think GChess with the explanation, the verbal explanation, will at least give you something there. But when you blindly follow a computer's analysis, you don't really know. It's very hard to play, and this is a tricky position for black, even for someone like Wesley So to play this correctly. Knight d4 was the move that Wesley played previously against Magnus Carlsen. But maybe white is slightly better after something like knight takes, bishop takes, simply c3, and now getting the last piece out, because you still retain this pin on the knight on f6. And this seems a little bit more pleasant for white to play. Maybe we can try to win that bishop, for example. Our light square bishop can keep on the board by maneuvering back round. But knight e7, well, okay, I mean, I've seen a couple of grandmasters talk that this is the best way to play, but it just seems to me like black really needs to know his stuff here. And the key point is, well, if we go greedy, knight takes e5, I don't think black should play bishop d4, which again is one of the computer's top ideas, because, well, maybe he can, but he's got to be very well prepared off this extremely interesting sacrifice, knight takes f7. And again, I just run this on the GChess computer. King takes, c3, and after the bishop moves, something like e5. And this looks really dangerous for black to me, with the king there. Yeah, you've got 2 pawns for the attack, but I mean, I think white has some decent chances. But I think what black's main idea would be after knight takes e5 is to counterattack in standard fashion. One of the points to move the knight back to e7 is to play c6. The other main point, should I say, of this move is to go knight g6. Let's just quickly show that. If white does something like knight d2 without thinking about what black's playing, then black will probably just put this knight very happily on this square. And if white again plays a move without thinking, without looking at his opponent's moves, then something like h6. And the problem now for white is white would like to play bishop h4, keeping the pin. But of course, now that the black knight has got here, black can just get rid of that extremely annoying piece. That's black's main idea with his knight e7. And you don't really want to allow it to get there, so you should do something rather immediate. But I think after knight takes e5, c6, and then whatever happens, d5 gives black extremely good play here. Now Jordan plays a very natural move. He plays bishop takes f6, pawn takes, and again, the computer thinks this position is fine for black, but I'm just looking at this, I'm just thinking, for a human, where is the black king going to go? You know, in the end, when Wesley castles kingside, but you have to be very careful. And the computer actually recommends that black plays a rook g8 and leaving the king in the center. But I look at that and I think, okay, the computer maybe gives this, but I wouldn't want to play this line from a human's point of view. And you've got to really think about this practically. If your king is weak, you know, it's going to give you long-term problems. Jordan plays very naturally. He tries to break in the center. And here, well, he can take back, but why not get his king castled? And again, this is equal according to the computer. The computer likes rook g8 here, but okay, c6 could be the same thing with after bishop c4, now rook g8. And this is kind of way the computer recommends playing. Try to get some counterplay, maybe with d5 and bishop h3. I expect here white just plays king h1. And again, I'm saying, okay, you have the g file to attack, but so what? Maybe, you know, unless you can get your queen over on the g file, I still think the black king just looks so dodgy to me. I mean, you know, but the computer likes this way of playing for black. But I would say, if you're going to play this position as black, you really have to know what your plans are. You can't just follow the computer, get into this position, and then try to work it out, because it's a very unnatural way to play with this horrible pawn structure and the king there. Now, black should have played that. Black played the more human move, castling, and after knight takes d4, well, he's got to be very, very accurate now. He plays d6, and I kind of feel in this position, black is just worse. Why? Well, he's got the double pawns and the weakened king. Also a slight weakness on d6. The only advantage black has is the two bishops, but I think there's too many slight problems with his position that's important. I think it was much better to have lashed out with d5. When you have the two bishops, you want to try to make pawn exchanges. Why do you want to make pawn exchanges with the two bishops? Because you open up more lines, the bishops work better in open positions. And this also gets rid of this weak pawn, which we see remains on the d6 square. And after something like pawn takes, knight takes, well, at least this looks a little bit freer for black. There is one line where white can now try knight b3, the bishop moves away from an attack, and now we can go into this ending. And I don't know, it's two bishops versus two knights. But of course, with knight c3, these pawns are very weak, so I might even prefer the two knights here. But it's certainly okay for black, this as well, with the two bishops, it must be. d6 was played, and now Jordan just brings his last piece out. And now black tries to get rid of one of his double pawns with this move. Queen d2 played, and now I think we see another slight mistake. This looks very dangerous. The queen is ready to come in, and Wesley So gets the king out of the way. Normal move. But as we see, this doesn't really help. I think he should have played f4. And this is like some positions you get in the King's Indian defense. This pawn blocks white's play on the king's side. And black even has some potential to start kingside play. You can't take this pawn because your knight hangs there. And if white plays a move like knight ce2, trying to come round and capture that one, knight g6 is key. Again, the same tactic guards this one. And let's say you get your king out of the line of the bishop. The queen comes to f6, and suddenly black is starting to get a nice blockade on those dark squares. And I think this would have been actually quite an interesting way to play, and I think here maybe black is equal, but again, it's not such simple moves to find. But you can see white can't get to the black king here. Black's pieces and pawn have done a good job of covering the king. After king to h8, Jordan plays a very natural move. And remember to sometimes cause brilliant attacking games, miniatures. You don't have to go crazy. You play logical moves. In order to win under 20 moves or 20 moves, you really have to rely on your opponent doing something wrong. So don't try to force the issue. Just play good moves. Lining up on this one, and the threat is knight b3 when things are going to be horrible on d6 and c5. So the bishop steps away from that, and now a very good move from Jordan. The knight comes to f3, attacking d6. And here, I think black's last chance was knight g6, just giving this pawn up and trying to make some exchanges like this, going into an ending a pawn down. Very miserable to play this though. Of course, white's better here. The problem is, after pawn takes e4, knight takes e4, maybe Wesley So underestimated the idea of the queen coming to c3, and that black king is so weak. Knight to f5 was played, but if he tries something like d5 here, let's have a look at the powerful queen c3 move. d4, we simply capture it. We got 1, 2, 3 pieces covering d4. Black only has 1, 2 covering d4. If f6 here, we just take on f6, and everything is dropping. If f5 in this position, queen c3 is just winning immediately. You can't even play f6. So Wesley plays knight to f5, and the point of this move is to at least cover f6. So if you play check here, black can play f6. And now the next move I think is very, very impressive. I don't know if I'd have found this move. Something like knight takes d6 is logical, but you always should look for the maximum in the position. And g4 was a brilliant, brilliant move. Why? Because it's very aggressive, but Jordan realizes that this knight is holding black's position together. Now the knight came back to g7, but it's already lost. If rook g8, now black is not covering f6 anymore, so queen c3 check works and wins. f6, we simply take it, and there's nothing black can do. If queen e7, well, this is a very tactical way to try and get out of trouble, but just rook d e1, and black's pieces are really hanging here. White is doing well, but after knight g7 in this position, the white queen now lands, and these white knights are ready to jump in. Black's position is crumbling. Bishop takes g4, and now the first knight comes in, threatening checkmate. Bishop f5, knight takes d6, and you can see here that everything is dropping. So on move 19, Wesley So resigns. Something you never see Wesley do. Really hardly ever. So brilliant game for Jordan. Now let's have a look. The standings before the round, we can see here, these were the players who went through to the knockout, the first 8, and Adhiban and Eduardo Itzaraga just missed out on qualifying. And the standings in the quarterfinal after that game, well, Wesley So did hit back to level the score. Wesley So is incredibly strong in these events, but well done Jordan for at least putting the pressure up. Aronian cruised through, but remember they are playing the second part of this quarterfinal today. So obviously Mamedyarov needs to strike back, Ali Reza needs to strike back, and Hikaru versus Vladislav is very, very tight. Okay, so we now just have our quick look at the Berlin on G-Chess. So again, if you've got this far and you don't want to look at G-Chess, then thank you, and please do subscribe to the channel and like the video. But in our encyclopedia here, we can see that we have covered the Ruy Lopez very thoroughly, and the main line, well, again, we made sure we got the Berlin into this with the Grandmaster commentary. All the encyclopedia is like some of the best commentary I think you'll find anywhere. It's Grandmaster commentary, and if we just go and have a look, for example, at the mainline position, and we just load up, I mean, you can see there's many different ways this can be played, and we cover it all. If you want to load up this, you can see you've got very in-depth variations there that you can cover. But we've loaded up a lot of PGNs here. Let's go back to the way that it was played in the game, D3. And D3, if we load this one up, you can see we've actually given already, so maybe Jordan was looking at our ECO, we actually gave D3 an exclamation mark, because we're looking for, you know, practical ways you can play openings, and we're trying to get you, if you want to learn an opening, suggest you to move in the right way. So if you get on G-Chess, you get on the encyclopedia, you subscribe, you're going to have all this analysis, which is very modern analysis, and we're updating it all the time. And it says recommended for white is the best try for advantage and leads into some surprisingly sharp positions, just the way to play against the Berlin. We could have a look on YouTube, and again you can see here that we are really getting more videos in. You can get your favorite YouTuber here and look at them play. Let's have a look. Even, and I'm very interested in this. So this is one of the really powerful features with G-Chess as well, and you get unlimited searches on our YouTube function if you subscribe. And I want to see, I'm going to listen to this because I'm very interested to see what Magnus Carlsen does in this position. So let's just bring up the video of him on YouTube, and he's played it a couple of times. This is fantastic. And we have now added all of our gold month. So I want to see how he played this position, and we've added previous tours. So let's just see how he did against Dubov. Very, very interesting.
We'd never see Dubov play the Berlin in his life. Magnus just defending that, and Dubov developing his bishop. So Dubov choosing one of the most solid openings out there for black.
So this is I think a really cool feature, that you can get lots of different stuff up there, and you can see we've got the previous tours up there. But the awesome thing with this is we see that after bishop c5, that Magnus Carlsen actually plays our main suggestion here, which is bishop takes c6, which we give as a way for white trying to get a safe advantage there. So very interesting. Of course, the other features we have on GChess, you can search the top online games, so you can see what the top players play. I think this is great because when you're learning openings, you don't always know what to do in the middle game. But if we bring up Hikaru, we can dive into middle game pawn structure, and we can look at what pawn breaks both sides are playing. And for example, I can see the pawn's gone to d4 here, and we can try to work out that, is this the kind of way that we play in the middle game? Look at the things that the top players do and try to copy them in your own games. We have this for offline games as well. We can see there's a number of games, Hikaru versus Ding, and good resources to help you better learn any opening. Very powerful tool. Remember, you can save all the work, as we've shown you before, create new files, and you can look at this all on your mobile phone when you're offline, when you're online or offline. So very powerful. Anyway, little GChess. Thank you very much. Cheers, and I'll be back with the second quarterfinal shortly tomorrow morning or later on tonight if we can get it in.